It's your boy Jay Lee.
It's your boy Junior Scott.
And today, welcome back, first of all, to week 1, episode 1. So today what we want to do is we're going to want to set the pace, right? We want you guys to understand what we're going to be bringing to you in these episodes, right? So every episode you can count on me to come and give you kind of like some words of encouragement, right? Some words, some things that's been on my mind that I want to bring to the people, just to encourage you in your journey. And then you can always count on my brother to come to you with a quote, right? With a quote, something that you can stand on for the week so that you can pursue that for the week. Something that can be in your mind, right? Something that you can hold on to as you part from this episode. So without further ado, my message is simple this week. Don't stand where it's comfortable, stand where you want to stand, right? So in this trying time that we're in, coming out of a quarantine, in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a civil rights movement, right? The 2020 civil rights movement. I want to tell you that I want you to do some research. I want you to really take a deep dive into what's going on, right? Don't just listen to what media is portraying to you. I want you to really do some research and figure out what you want to think, where you want to stand, how you want to feel, right? And even if you feel like people that are close to you may judge you for the way that you feel, you still have a right to feel the way that you feel. You still have a right to stand where you want to stand.
Absolutely.
So I want to empower you to do that. And that's my word, my brother. That's my word for the week.
So this week's quote of the week, it comes from my latest book, If You Knew What I Know. The quote states, "In order to change, I would have to look into the mirror to realize who I truly was." And one thing about that, when we talk about being uncomfortable, when we talk about change, it's hard to change when you don't know where you coming from, right? If you don't know who you are right now, how can I mold myself to be who I want to be, right? And so I just want to challenge you all to take that this week and run with it. Figure out who you truly are. Figure out what you're interested in. Figure out what skills that you provide to this earth, right? To our community. And how are you going to elevate your mind from the mud, right? And continue to sharpen your toolbox. And so, it's simple. Just figure out who you truly are and how are you going to change to get better each and every day. And that's my word. That's my quote.
So, I mean, now that we've done that, and you can count on that every episode. Now that we've done that, we want to kind of dive into the guest that we're bringing on today. Mike Stuckey, which is a mind from the mud, a pillar of our community here in South Bend, Indiana. And just somebody that's near and dear to us. You
Absolutely.
know? He has served as a big brother in a time in which we needed that void to be filled, you know? And I mean, we think that he has a lot of gems that he can pass along to our listening audience in this episode. From serving as a coach, a mentor, and I mean, just having a colorful background that he could speak and he could touch and he can have a lot of you who have come from that same lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? And you may be trying to figure out how can you change, how can you look in the mirror and figure out where you want to go, right? So, I mean, without further ado, we're going to jump in and just provide you all with what you've been missing.
This week's Mind of the Mud, Mike Stuckey, ladies and gentlemen.
Mike Stuckey! What's up, bro? Man, welcome to Mind of the Mud, man.
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, man, we appreciate you, man. We appreciate you. So, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, just to get right into it, what I want to do is I want the audience to understand who you are, where you from, and just a little bit of your story, right? So if you can encapsulate your story in just 1 or 2 minutes, how would you do it? What would you say?
I am Mike Stuckey. Most people know me as an artist, music artist, rapper, performer, songwriter. But I would like to look at myself as a pillar to my community, a person who has a heart for growth in the community, a person who has been through some things that made me want to see change and create opportunities for people like myself who didn't have those opportunities at a young age.
Yeah.
I come from South Bend, Indiana. I was born on the west side of South Bend, Indiana. I moved to the lake at a young age.
The lake, what's the lake for people that may not be in South Bend?
The lake is the area from, I would say, Olive Street, Olive and Western down to Mayflower. I attended school at Harrison, Navarre, and Washington High School. I went to the South for a second my freshman year, but came back to Washington, which kind of made me cultured on both sides of the fence. You know,
Yeah.
Those two neighborhoods is funny because we come from a certain culture, and those two sides at the time I was growing up was actually rival sides at times, where there was a lot of violence going in between each side of town.
Yeah.
And I was able to rotate on both sides without really getting myself caught up in the bickering back and forth.
Yeah.
But it was tough because I had people on both sides who I loved, and people who actually, had altercations, actually lost lives, and it just made me understand how to move without being phony and actually choosing sides and learning how to stand on my own as a man. I think a lot of young cats get caught up in the friend stuff. These my homies, so I gotta ride and I gotta do certain things. But it made me understand that I could be myself.
Yeah.
I could stand on something without having to stand with people.
Yeah.
So I come from a single parent background. My father was kind of lost in the streets for a long time.
Yeah.
And my mom, so it forced my mom to take care of me and my brother at a young age. So
You the youngest or
I'm the oldest.
oldest?
I'm the youngest. My brother's a little bit older than me, 2 years older than me. So that also forced me to kind of figure out some things on my own.
Yeah.
Mom was at work a lot. Dad was just in the streets, and then once he got himself together, he got sick. He passed away from leukemia. So I was 14 when my dad passed away. So then I really was like, man, that's when I started to try to figure out who I was, where I come from, why am I the way I am, why do I look the way I look, why do I act the way I act, why am I attracted to the things I'm attracted to, where am I going in life? That's what really, when I seen it that close, like I had seen death before, but never that close to me. So it changed me for, I would say, the better.
I would ask, like, one thing when I think about your story, and every time I hear it, I think about that transition period from how you fell victim to the social HIV disease, right? For those that don't know, the hood infectious virus that leads to AIDS, which is addicted to incarceration and death syndrome. And I want to know, what was that transition like from being a boy to in the street?
Like I said, I had a single mom that was working a lot. So she wasn't really, she was in my life, but she really couldn't culture it to the fact where she could control kind of what I was doing. My big brother it's funny, my big brother was a genius, right, in school, right? But he took to the streets early. So that was really my direct influence to the street life. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I would say, honestly, that I was infected with the hood infectious virus, but I never had AIDS. I never was addicted to death and incarceration, whatever that is. I think that's what kind of the transition point for me was. It was like, once I got in the streets, like I was infatuated with the streets. Like I kind of seen it at a young age. Like my whole family was involved in like I used to be on Chapin with my family when I was a little kid, and my grandfather, the block used to be Washington Street. My grandfather used to own a pool hall up that way.
Okay.
So I'm really a block baby. Like I'm from that. Like I'm really from that. Like, so it's like it got to a point where I was just like, I wanted something different for my life.
And what point do you think that was?
I seen kids started dying at a young age. Like I had a homie, little Joseph, who got killed when he was young, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Like we could really die out here. You know what I'm saying? I'm 40 now, and I got homies who just came home from stuff that we was doing when we was 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, who just getting out of prison. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I started saying like, damn, I could really be gone for
It's real.
30 years. You know what I mean? And I started looking at that like, that's not the life for me. You know what I mean? As much as I love being a artist, I love, the fast life. I love the money. I love cars. I love women. I love all this stuff. I love myself more than that. I love freedom. I love living. I loved, progress. I love to see progression.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that just was a stagnated situation. Like everything that was involved in it was always stuck in the same, I would say, maze or rat wheel, or whatever you would call it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it started making me look at stuff differently. I think another thing I would say to change me is just the fact that, I got involved in music early, and I started seeing success from music. And it started making me a businessman. I started looking at it, because at first I was just a rapper. I didn't understand the business side of it. Yeah. And I got involved in it, and I got in spots where, I didn't understand the music, and people kind of got over me, and it burned me. So I started to become a sponge and a student of business, a student of how to work a business, how does a business work. And I took that template and I started applying it in my life with everything. So once I became a businessman and I started to see how certain stuff was counterproductive to business, I started to change. I started to look at stuff from a different scope.
Okay.
So from that, just piggybacking on what my brother asked you, so from the transition from a boy to kind of being infatuated with that street life, and then realizing like life is real, like I could be gone, and then realizing that it's other ways to get money out here. It's other ways, it's other avenues that I can tap into. What was the transition once that light came on to the Stuckey that we both knew, the Stuckey that we both got a chance to know as our big bro, that we would come to and that would feed us gems and say, hey, take your little money and buy a house.
Facts, because what I remember from when I was young, I remember Stuck as a hooper and a rapper. Right? He always had CDs on deck. Always. He drove a van. I remember like it was yesterday, he had cut out. He wasn't in South Bend no more, he was in the Fort. But he would come back, and him and my dad was chopping, and I was a young buck. And he had CDs, and he had gave me one, and I thought it was big. Like I thought it was like, And so, So what was that transition like?
I think it was just seeing that other things other than the streets could work. Like when you coming up and you in the streets, it's like you young, you struggling, you figuring out, you watch people be successful, but the only successful people you see is the people that's, selling dope, that's, they got cars, they got jewelry, they got money, they got a lot of money in their pocket. I started to see that type of success with music. And I started to say, wow, I could do something different. I could really not have to play the streets. I could not really have to play that lifestyle. I could do anything, like. And I started. My brother was the person who got me into real estate. My brother he had bought a house off the tax sale list for, I think it was like $900. And I was like, dang. Like at the time I was on Section 8. At the time I was like, it wasn't my Section 8. It was my baby mama's Section 8. And I really didn't. You know what I'm saying? I really wasn't even supposed to be living in the house, but I was paying all the bills and making sure everything was taken care of. And my brother was like, man, I just bought this crib for $900 off the tax sale list. I'm like, what?
What?
I paid more than that in rent and bills, and you know what I'm saying? So I started to research it, and a house came across the tax sale list. It was my father's old crib, the crib that he lived in when he passed away, and that was the house I lived in on Linden.
Yeah.
And it was on there for $321.
Dang.
So I went through all the due diligence to get it done, and I bought the house. I hadn't even told at the time, my baby mama, but now she's my wife, that I bought the house. I bought the crib, and she was still living in Fort Wayne. I was like, look, I'm finna go back to South Bend. You stay here until I get the crib done.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the crib and I fixed it up. I got it up to the point where we could live in it.
Yeah.
And I told her, look, we getting off Section 8, and we never gonna be on it again because we own the crib. And I brought her to the house, and that was like the real transition. But my transition to really thinking that I could leave the streets was when I started working. I started working at Oakland.
Okay.
And at the time I had, ball team, and it was all young dudes.
Yeah.
It was all cats that was like 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to see that in my head. God was telling me that my purpose was not music. It was actually to affect change with the young community. Because he always kept drawing young kids to me, bringing them around me, making me the influence in their life.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, so my purpose ain't music. It's to use the music to attract the kids, to show them that they can do something different with their life.
Yeah.
So, just for mental clarification for me, around what age did you start working at Oakland and then come to that realization?
If I may have been about 32 when I worked at Oakland.
32.
And I worked there for 2 years straight.
And around that time, you started to realize, like, nah, this is my.
Yeah, because when I was there, it was a lot of kids who had the same story as me.
Yeah.
But they had nobody to really stand in gaps for them.
Okay.
Like a lot of people came to the job and like really targeted certain people because they really had nobody to fend for them. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like I was placed in that place for those people at that time that needed me. And that's what I did. And when my time was over, I left. You know what I mean? And then I started to volunteer at the King Center. Like I worked as a volunteer at the King for 2 years before I was on payroll, before I was making money actually working there. So, and then that was a whole nother situation where I was around young cats, you know what I'm saying? Attracted to kids, like, well, maybe go there. As I went to a maid discussion one time and it blew my mind. I was like, dang, this is crazy because, I come from a Heroes Camp background. And we kind of did that, but not to that level. It was more on some religion and some gospel Christian stuff.
Yeah.
This was like talking about the real stuff. This was like really putting some fat on some young cats' heads about how do I transition from being a cat who is, involved in HIV, who got the HIV, and how do I stop myself from getting AIDS to addicted to incarceration and death syndrome.
Yeah.
That's what it was about. And it was like, I remember when Mo used to, when I was young, Mo used to have those meetings in the back and stuff, and I'd be like, man, I'm not going to I'd be in there, we'd be chilling, he started talking, I'd get up, I'd be like, man, I'm out of here.
I can't know who.
But at that time, I was going through that transition myself.
Yeah.
So it hit home with me, so I stayed. I started coming all the time, like, and just being around. And, God had told me that I was supposed to be there.
Okay.
And not for money, but I was just supposed to be there for me. People think that I come to those meetings because I'm trying to influence young people, but I needed to hear that curriculum for myself.
Yeah.
So when you hear Minds from the Mud, right? And as we elaborate on that, and mud meaning what the system has put in place for us as our society to live in, right? Our community, we feel like we've risen from those stereotypical things that have been put in place. And as we continue to elevate and plant those seeds in the mud and prepare that land to grow, right? As we harvest our young fellas in our community to grow, what would be the biggest thing for you as a pillar in our community, as a mind from the mud? what would you give somebody that's still at ground zero, that's trying to get to where you are now?
I would just say just stay grounded with them. Like, a lot of people feel like as you transition that you're supposed to see people from a place of, of being under you. But I'm really into like getting in the mud with people and letting them know that I'm willing to come down to where you at so you can understand that I'm not better than you. I'm a person who went through exactly what you went through, or maybe not exactly, but I come from a place where it was hard, you know what I'm saying? It was low, like, and I'm willing to get down in the mud with you to save you. If that's what if that's my calling, if that's what God has called me to be, I'm not better than you. I'm not above you. I'm just like you. I'm just maybe one step or two steps further than where you come from. And if you're trying to go where I'm trying to go, then let's go together. I think we have to understand that low is the way. Like ain't nobody better than nobody in this world.
Facts.
And just because I'm in a place today don't mean that I can't go through something tomorrow that may have me take a step backwards. And just like you may need me today, I may need you tomorrow. So what I would give them is just my sacrifice, my life, my blood, my sweat, my tears, whatever it takes to let them see that they can do something different with their life. They could grow from their life. They can get out of their situation, because if I could do it, anybody could do it. Sure. If I could see change, if I could see something greater, anybody can. Because I was like, I was at a point in my life where I didn't know nothing but, I thought I didn't know nothing else but the streets. You know what I'm saying? I thought that was the end all be all to my life. I aspired to be the biggest dope boy in the world at one point in my life. I aspired to be the richest street nigga that ever was created at one point in my life. But when I figured out that the end all be all to that was either an early grave or life in prison, I started to rethink that thing. When I was young, I was like, I'm gonna be smarter, I'm gonna be wiser, I'm gonna be the one that make it out. But I started seeing dudes that was cold.
Take that fall. Go get that 50, that 60, that 30. And I'm like, damn. I gotta rethink this. I gotta figure out another way to get out of this thing. And it was my calling to young people that made me change it. So I'm just willing to do whatever it takes, willing to talk, speak, open up people's eyes to information, open up doors, opportunity, resources, whatever I got to see somebody, make it out of the pitfalls that they created for us, like it's by design that we are where we at, doing what we doing. But we could change that design if we get a different, altered mind state. If somebody could open up our eyes to something different, somebody could be like, yo, you good at this, you could do this, this, and this to become something else. You don't gotta go down that path. And honestly though, but it take a special mind to really hear that, to understand that. Like, it's a lot of cats who fear leaving that lifestyle, who think that they're gonna be less than or frowned upon if they go do something different with their life. So they got themselves stuck in it mentally. And as much as we see cats, like I used to explain to Cedric all the time, as much as we see cats at the center and we think that when they're around us, that they cool and that they straight, when they leave from us, we don't know what they going through. You know what I'm saying? We don't know really what's in their home. We don't know who they around. We just don't know. So those cats got to be nurtured on a different level. Those cats got to be spoke to on a different level. Those cats got to be like, you got to really let them know that, man, I'm really here with you. I'm not here for you. I'm here with you. I'm in this position as well. Like, I could go to my natural habitat and things could just go different for me in one day. So I just give them my sacrifice. I give them me. I think for me, a parting question, because I think you hit on it, but I really want you to emphasize it to the people, is the power of being at the grassroots. And when I say at the grassroots, I simply mean you lived in Fort Wayne, you lived in Memphis, you lived in different places other than South Bend, other than the community that brought you up, that shaped and molded you. But somehow you found your calling and your purpose back at your hometown. You came back, you started working at Oakland, and then you started to realize, oh, this is the way that I need to go. And now you in your hometown community doing that. So what's the importance to you of being at your home space, your hometown, in your home, the mud that made you, and now you back in those same trenches trying to help others? How important is that to you?
Honestly, when I lived in those other places, I was searching for success. I was under the impression that I could not be successful in South Bend, Indiana. But I also didn't understand what success was for me.
Yeah.
I think that we get caught up in thinking that success is something that we see somebody else have. And you have to understand what it is for you.
Yeah.
I think that it's important because I came from humble beginnings, and that now that I'm in a place where I never could imagine myself being in, to be able to go back to those humble spots and see, where I came from and see how it hasn't changed much, and that I came so far with just being persistent, being steady, being hungry, being wanting something different. That it's important that I come to these places. It's important that people see me being successful in my own right, being happy, smiling, dressing a certain way, talking a certain way, speaking about powerful things, not having a negative word on my tongue, having great energy, being a pillar, being somebody that's, a beacon, because it's the only way that people where I'm from gonna believe that it's possible.
Yeah.
I think that example is important, and me being an example to the people in my community is key to the development of the future of my community. I think that inspires people.
Yeah.
Kids is like, it's certain things that I say to kids and they look at me like, what? And I'd be like, nobody never told you that? Like, you never thought that could happen for you?
Yeah.
You never been told that you could really be anything that you want to be? Look at me.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be dead already. I was supposed to be doing 100 years. But instead, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a provider, I'm a big brother, I'm something that people look at as positive.
Yeah.
When at one point, all I did was negative.
Yeah.
So to see that come full circle is important.
Beautiful.
Man, I think that that's definitely some gems that everybody can take, use, and run with. And we circle back to the beginning of the quote. You got to figure out who you are in order to change, right? I think that Stuck highlighted that by telling us his story. He was in search of success. Once he figured out who he truly was, he understood where his success lies, and it lies right here in the mud, right? And I think that so many of us wanna, I gotta go here to do this, I gotta move here to do that.
Yep.
In certain situations, right, if you wanna specialize in oceanography, you have to be somewhere where there's an ocean.
Where there's an ocean.
Right.
For sure.
But the things that you specialize in, not everybody needs to relocate to do that. And I think that that's something that you really touched on. And I just say thank you for coming back and influencing me.
Love, bro.
Yeah, that was powerful. That was powerful.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir. Of course.
What you think your purpose is?
I honestly think that purpose is a unique thing, you know. But I think for me personally, I think that my purpose is simple. I think that I have been given a unique voice, a unique personality, and a kind of unique aura about myself. I learned from a young age the effect that I can have on people, and it's to the point where I don't have to try. You know what I'm saying? It's something that I do without even thinking. So my whole goal and objective is to utilize that gift that God has given me and just make the world a better place each day. Shine my light. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that my purpose is pigeonholed to one thing. I just think that it's just to shine my light. Like I might sit down and have a conversation with somebody and be like, have you ever thought about it like this? And then that person might take that and run with it.
Right.
Like I've had multiple encounters with multiple people when they might hit me a year later, 2 years later, a month later, a week later, and say, hey, Jim, I just wanted to let you know that what you told me, that really hit me, and I took it and this is what I'm doing with it now. And in my mind, I don't even remember what I gave them. It was just something that I did because that's what God does.
Right.
He works through us if we allow him to. So me personally, I'm never gonna pigeonhole my purpose to one profession, one walk of life, one anything. It's just me being able to tap in person to person and allow him to send that energy or that awakening or that message to somebody who needs it. I'm just what do your dad say? When you get better, you give back.
I think for me, my purpose evolves each and every day. But if I had to put something on it, I think it would be to be the best version of myself that I can be every day.
Yeah.
And I think that by me unconsciously being the best version of me, I give others around me permission to do the same.
Yeah.
Right? And so if I never try to shrink myself to make others not feel insecure, then I'm able to enlighten people that's around me. And I really learned that from the poem. The tool that we use is Our Deepest Fear. And I really take that to heart. I read that to myself every morning.
Yeah.
And so I think that that drives my ambition. I think in life that we got so many skills that we try to tap into, right? Like we all like to hoop, right? Big Bro is a musical genius. He can rap on anything. Anything from the jobs that we work to, those are our daily routines. But at the end of the day, we still have to be self-sustaining. We have to fulfill our own needs.
Yeah.
And so no matter how much we can do for other people, it still back comes to I value my life. And so I have to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do to stay alive and free.
For sure.
So
For sure.
So we would just like to thank you, bro, for
Man.
coming on the episode.
Appreciate
The first
it, bro.
ever.
Anytime y'all need me.
This is what the
Minds
people
from
need,
the mud.
man. This is what the
Let me
people
know.
need.
Yeah.
And I mean, as we close, I just want to tell y'all that don't always think that the grass is greener